Hello and welcome. How are you? It is a very sunny day here in the Netherlands. And it's very warm, very sunny. So we're all a bit confused. Hi, Kelly. Let's see. Linda is here. Hi, Linda. We are opposite. Thunderstorms. Yikes. Yeah, we don't have a lot of dramatic weather here in the Netherlands. As long as the dikes hold. That's our main concern. I'm gonna start up slow. I am ill prepared tonight because I had a bit of a rough week with some migraines and some things. So let's just take it slow. I might have a ray of sun traveling over my workspace, and I also need to keep track of whether or not I need to turn on my light if my lighting is still accurate. So I'm gonna keep an eye on the live stream. But if you guys see anything that is weird or out of order, you can just let me know. Okay. Yeah, migraines are the bane of my existence. So today we have a painting. It's called A Study of Fanny Eaton. And I found this painting in a book. And I liked it because you don't see a lot of paintings with black people. You just don't. And I went to, I go to a lot of museums, but I also often go to the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. And at some point I started, looking for that, seeing if I could find either stuff that was painted by women or just generally the way that women are portrayed. And then you start seeing that the majority of work in those museums are just very similar. This painting was, again, kind of two-bird with one non-violent method type of thing, where the painting is painted by a woman and the subject is a woman, and the subject is a very interesting woman named Fanny Eaton, who was born on Jamaica. Before I continue with all my blah blah, I have ivory black, ultramarine blue, transparent red iron oxide, yellow brown, and titanium white. Ariana is here. Hi. Let's see if I'm not blocking my... I just want to put in a couple of colors for the background, so we have that in there a little bit. And then we can talk. Let's talk about who painted this, which is Joanna Boyce. She married a guy called Wells, who was also a painter, but was born Boyce, I think, in 1831, I believe. Now, Joanna came from a rich British family, which was, I think if you read a lot about female painters, most of them that were, you know, in a position in that time to do anything with art professionally, or probably just anything professionally. It depended on two things: your wealth, or the wealth of your family, and whether or not your father or your brother, some other dude, allowed you to do that. So Joanna was rich, and her father allowed it. So she went to art school. Her brother also went to art school, was also an artist. And she didn't paint a lot because she died at age 31, giving birth to her third child. So that's a bummer, because the works that she did create were technically impressive. Yeah, that's some impressive stuff. All right, we're gonna leave the background. I feel like my background color is a little bit too green. We're gonna try and make that work. So there was not a lot of work of her, but she was part of a group, and I actually cannot remember if her brother was also part of the group as well. It was a group of artists called the Pre-Raphaelites, and they were a group of artists painting in a specific style. All right, if you look it up, you will recognize that style. It's a very recognizable style. And what often happened is that these groups of artists, they would hire a model and then split the costs. And they hired Fanny Eaton. Let's see, just a quick color intermezzo. So we have this blue-green background that is going to sort of color complement the yellow undertone of her skin. Is my palette? Yeah, visible. Let's just check the chat. The horse, yeah. I'm actually not, how do you say this? I'm not that well educated in all these art. If I'm lost for words, it's because of my medication. I have medication for my migraines that basically constricts the vessels, and I feel like I'm lacking oxygen to my brain. So my brain functions seem a little bit off. It's because of that. But it's a very specific style. So Fanny was from Jamaica, and this is interesting because she was born ten months, I think, after the abolition of slavery in Jamaica by the British Empire. Jamaica was part of or occupied by, I'm not sure what the correct term is, occupied by the British Empire. So she was officially born a free woman, and it's unknown who her father was, but he was suspected to be a British officer, and she and her mother traveled to England a couple of years later and started working there. Yikes, that is too much blue. All right, so on the topic of mixing skin tones with a yellow undertone, there are skin tones in a variety of lost for words. There are dark skin tones and light skin tones that can have a yellow undertone, they can have a red undertone, they can have a cooler undertone, but usually your choice is between red and yellow, and then you have cool and warm varieties of that. So I have a yellow undertone, but I am considerably lighter than the painting that we're doing now. So the thing with the undertone is that when you mix that yellow and you feel like it's too yellow, which sometimes happens when you have a chromatic yellow on your palette, you can always tone that down with blue. Yeah, it's very easy to do. So they went to England and worked as a domestic servant, and she, when she got older, she married a guy, and Fanny married a guy. She had 10 kids, 10. And she started working as an art model. I think I read on the internet that she made a whopping 5 shilling per session. I have no idea what that is in current value. And she features in quite a few paintings. And one of the paintings that caused the most uproar is a painting by one of these members. I think he was a member of that group of pre-Raphaelites. If I remember, I think it was called Rossetti. Yeah, I think it's Rossetti. His painting is called The Beloved. I'm not a huge fan of this style, right? So that being said, that painting, I think it's awful. I think it's so cheesy. It's so nah. But then when you read the background story about it, so what he did was he painted a scene from something biblical, right? Old Testament. I'm no expert. It's about a guy. His name is Solomon. He has someone he loves. And I think in the story, she is described, his beloved is described as being black and beautiful. And what Rossetti did was he painted a painting with a lot of women. It's a depiction of a woman being either escorted to her wedding or something like that. And the woman that is being portrayed as the beloved, as you know, from the Song of Solomon, is as white as they come, like white. She's white with red hair and surrounded by all these women who are not white. Some of them are white, but with dark features, so dark hair, dark eyes. Some of them look a little bit Arab. And then he has also a depiction of Fanny Eaton somewhere in the back. So Rossetti was, I think, very happy with the painting. And then he showed it, and people were not so happy. So even in the 19th century, people were like, yeah, I don't think that's correct. Dude, I don't think that's the way it's in the Bible. So that was awkward. And I looked up that painting and I was like, why would you do that? But it turns out that it was a commission. He painted it as a commission for some rich dude. So maybe he was told to make her white. I don't know. Let's see. I love your choice. Thank you. I feel like every time I choose a painting, I'm more interested in the actual art historical information that I can find than the actual color theory behind it, which is fine, of course. But what did strike me about this painting is how well it's executed. I mean, laughing about Rossetti's The Beloved aside, what you see sometimes in especially earlier paintings depicting skin tones that deviate from what the artist is used to seeing very often results in really strange results sometimes. I sometimes call it the Peppa Pig effect, where basically what your brain does is it tries to change stuff into what you're used to seeing. So this is why people struggle with painting profiles and the actual shape of the eye in a profile view. Our brain, it's not us, it's our brain, tends to want to turn that towards yourself, right? The way that Peppa Pig is drawn from the side, but somehow has two eyes on the side of her head. It's something that apparently we've been doing since we were kids, is turning stuff to face us. And the same goes for drawing and painting features or colors. And I've seen paintings of what they would refer to in the 17th, 18th, even the 19th century as exotic. Sometimes you see these really weird color choices where they would give people, for instance, with my complexion or either an Asian or Arab or African skin, that would still give them these really red cheeks, because they were probably from a country where a lot of people had red cheeks. And it doesn't look right. So when you look at this painting, it's just very well executed in terms of color. So what happens with skin that has a yellow undertone, we all have blue blood vessels. And when you have a pink undertone or red undertone, that equals purple or purplish in those areas. But when you have a yellow undertone, that can go a little bit green. Hello, Amy. You made it. How are you doing? How are you all doing, by the way? All right, Amy, I was cleaning up after a big storm. That's a lot of storms. You guys having storm season? I had it backwards, Linda. I had to look it up. The lady with the red hair is on the horse. The knight is in love with her. It's called La Belle Dame sans merci. Oh, by Waterhouse. John William Waterhouse is one of those paintings. For a long time, I thought he would just paint like Barbie dolls or something. It's got that doll vibe going on. I love Waterhouse. I'm good. Glad to be with you. I'm glad you're here. Serious storm. Yeah, all right. Serious storms going on. I think we stole all the good weather here. All right, and let's get a tiny bit of white there. Okay, down. So I did my sketch with white this time. I think I like it better than black charcoal. So let me show you how, because here's what I do. I'm gonna try not to ruin my painting. The light's still good, right? So I do my sketch in my sketchbook, and then what I do is I trace it on the back. You can't really see it because it's white. But if you use black charcoal, you can sort of trace it here on the back. And then I put my my paper in between, like where my hand is now. And then I go over here with the back of a brush, right? So the back that has the charcoal is being transferred, or the pastel is being transferred onto the, and it leaves a not a perfect copy, but like an indication of where things are, and then you can emphasize that. And it really does save like a ton of time. My issue always with sketching on the actual paper is that I either don't like the placement, and I want to change that, or I mess stuff up, you know, and then you get all this. I want a clean sketch sometimes. Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see, where are we at? So I took this image from the website of The Guardian. They had a good photo. I have it in a book, so I try to reference that. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. They had a good resolution image going on. So what I noticed in this image, and it's one of the things that thought I would mention, which it messed me up a little bit in the first episode of this whole study in color thing I have going on. Is the first painting I did was by Gwen John. And if you were there, you remember I struggled and I wasn't too happy. And then I realized that what I'm trying to do, obviously, in all of these live streams is I'm trying to get something done in a technique that is probably not the same as the technique that was used to create the painting in the first place. Dylan is here. Hello. Go put your kids to bed. My kid is out playing the devil's music with his friends. So I have nothing else to do but paint. In a couple of years, Dylan's going to be at everybody's live stream because his kids are either going to be out doing who knows what or putting themselves to bed. It's only a couple more years. Anyways, what I was saying, the Gwen John painting I struggled with because there was probably a lot of dry brushing going on, maybe even some glazing. And I struggled a lot with trying to find those color nuances that she had, but then alla prima, which is already a thing that is difficult to do, and not something that I'm very proficient at or practiced a lot. So I looked up close at this painting, and what you can see very clearly is that there is a lot of texture in that highlighted area here on her cheekbone that is then glazed over with some kind of yellow, creating a very complex color dynamic. And by complex, I mean not necessarily because it has different colors in the highlight, but because the texture of the underlying, what is probably white paint, when you then glaze over that, you get that patina effect, where some of the pigment particles accumulate in the ridges of the texture, and some of the higher areas of the texture become lighter. And it's really one of those effects that can only be achieved with glazing. So that being said, we're gonna try and sort of approximate what's going on here. And I think most importantly, for me and for you, but I'm stubborn, for me to remember is that my goal here was to learn something about color relation. And my goal, I think, was not to create all these accurate master copies. Ariana says, I realize that too. I work in Procreate. Yeah, that's very different. I don't have an iPad, but I used to work in Photoshop as well. And it's very different. It's, you know, for me, digital work, it's almost incomparable to analog work. I don't know how you call it. I don't want to call it real work, because I think digital work is 100% real. But for me, the main thing was that when you work on a screen, your pixels are illuminated, right? You see color through the illumination of the pixel itself. So it's a very different way of seeing color almost. That's a very big engine. So we have this area here, which is the eye socket. And what I think is extremely well done, by the way, where you often see an eye of the same thing, is with some people, the eye socket, not only it sits very deep, but it also has some, a little bit of discoloration around it. And I think at some point, I think I read it was called hyperpigmentation or something like that. Some areas of skin with more pigment, they tend to get darker, especially over time, which is very often the case with the skin around the eye socket. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that the skin maybe is thinner. I know my father had it as well. So that is something that is, well, if you look at the reference photo, oh, we're losing light, like a lot of light. Sorry, just gonna. Let's see if I can turn on the light. The light. All right, I think that's good. no glare. All right, let's take a look at the illumination. Is a big, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think Procreate is great. You know, you don't have to break out a lot of stuff. Let me get my camera a little bit more on. All right, that's 50 minutes of painting. I think I'm getting better at actually doing something in a short amount of time. Just a quick recap. You know, I'm a teacher in Let's Face It, and sometimes I follow the Facebook group a little bit whenever I have the time. At some point, there was, I think, a discussion about maybe a lack of variety in both gender and skin tone, which I think is fair enough. On the other, well, not on the other hand, the issue with that is that it's therefore also difficult to get instruction from different teachers about how to deal with a difference in gender in terms of generalized facial features, and also some instruction on how to deal with different skin tones. So I discussed the undertone a little bit. Undertone is also a thing that you need to concern yourself with when you're choosing a foundation color, you know, something like that. So, but in terms of painting, what's important? The only thing that I wanna recommend now, with my, albeit limited experience, but my experience with painting different skin tones is, as a rule, try and determine always whether someone is from Norway or from South Africa or from Thailand or whatever. Try and establish what is the lightest light, what is the darkest dark, and preferably what is at least one midtone. So when you look at this face that I just blocked in a little bit, the lightest light means the lightest value, that is not a specular highlight. A specular highlight is something that a reflective surface gives, like the little light in your eye, which is often some sort of white. But I mean the lightest value, that again is not a specular highlight. So that would be this area, yeah? And when you take this area and you isolate it, and yeah, you can do that in Procreate or you can do it in Photoshop, whatever you want. When you isolate it, you will see that it's lower in value, darker than somebody with an extremely white skin. So that is how you can establish a hierarchy in terms of light. Then you have a mid-tone sitting here. And then you have the shadow, for instance, here under the jaw, which is the same value as the shadow in the eye socket, except the shadow in the eye socket is a little bit warmer, right? So but when you have those three, then you can say, all right, maybe we need a cool variety, we need a warmer variety. And that helps you establish a starting point for any skin tone and for any undertone as well. That was my rant for today. I like it. It was fun to do a bit of a yellow-ish skin tone. It's interesting to see where the warmest areas are that are not necessarily the mouth, because I have a feeling that she has a bit of color on her lips. You see a lot of warmth here for some reason, like I said, here in the eye socket. You guys have any questions? Let me know, or let me know later. I'm gonna get some rest. And thank you for joining me again. I hope to see you next week. Same day, same time. Let's see. Thank you, Linda, for being here. Amy says her undertone looks green to me. Yeah, so I'm not sure if you came in right after I said that. The thing with the green is that everyone has blue veins in their face, and it depends a little bit on your undertone, what that makes. So if you have a yellow undertone with the blue, you get a lot of green, especially here in the bottom of the face. And if you're pink, I got a pink friend. She's so pink, it's not even funny. What you get purple. Yeah, because it mixes with the blue. So every face has a cool tone and a warm tone in the areas where there's a lot of blood. And depending on the undertone of your skin, that can result in a little bit more green or a little bit more purple. Thank you, Kelly, for joining me, and thank you all for being here. And I will see you next week, or I will see you online somewhere, or I will see you during Dylan's live stream in half an hour. Again, thank you for joining me, and have a good day or have a good evening wherever you are. Mwah. Bye. See you next week.